everyone, welcome to the Singapore Budget Forum 2009. I'm Elvin Yong. The Singapore government has announced a major package to tackle an unprecedented recession in the economy and build capabilities for the future. Finance Minister Tharman unveiled the measures in Parliament today. Now, key to the budget is what has been branded a resilience package costing 20.5 billion Sing dollars. Budget 2009 has 5 key aims: preserving jobs, stimulating bank lending, enhancing business cash flow and competitiveness, supporting families, and building a home for the future. Now, the budget comes at a time of grave economic crisis with simultaneous recessions in all major economies around the world. And Singapore is in its deepest recession since independence in 1965. To fund the budget, the government is planning for the very first time to draw on past reserves to the tune of $4.9 billion. Well, I'm joined in studio today by Finance Minister Tharman to discuss the issue. Minister, welcome.
Thank you.
And also my panel of guests, Halimah Yacob, who's Deputy Secretary General of the National Trades Union Congress, Dan McHugh, who's CEO of logistics company DHL, Song Sing Woon, CEO and Regional Economist at CIMB GK Research, and on my right, David Ong, Chairman of the Kreta Ayer Kim Seng Citizens Consultative Committee, and Rennie Yeo, President of the Singapore Manufacturers Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thank you for coming in. Minister, if I can just kick off the discussion and talk about one of the big issues of this budget, which is drawing on past reserves to fund some of the government's programs. You said in your budget, of course, that the government has all the resources currently to support the liabilities that it has without having to borrow further. But yet, for job credit and for the other parts of the resilience package, you've chosen to draw on past reserves. What was the rationale behind that?
Well, basically because the situation we are in is exceptional. This is not a normal downturn. It's not a normal recession even. It's something which is going to be the worst economic decline that we've seen in our independence, since our independence. Probably the worst the world has seen in 60 years. And no one knows for sure when it will end. 2010 may be worse than 2009. No one knows. So how do we respond? First, our key priority is to keep jobs for Singaporeans. And the best way of doing that is to help businesses to keep those jobs. If we go with our usual business as usual measures, the usual counter-cyclical actions, I think we'll be able to sort of, tide over for a few months. But it's not going to be enough to tilt business decisions in a decisive way in favor of workers. So we had to do something exceptional, something which we don't normally do in budgets, not even in normal counter-cyclical budgets, which is to provide businesses a significant grant to keep workers and to provide businesses with a better chance of getting credit from banks at a time that banks are risk-averse. These are exceptional measures. We've never done them before. The government is taking a significant risk in bank lending. Should we put it on the normal budget? I think the best strategy is to tap on past reserves, because this is what past reserves were for. We built them up patiently over the years through fiscal prudence so as to be able to serve Singapore at times of dire crisis. And this is a dire crisis. Better to draw on past reserves now and know we've got all the resources we need to deal with not just this year's difficulties, but what comes after, rather than wait until we run out of money and then go to the president and try to persuade him to draw on past reserves.
Yeah, indeed. Well, the jobs, saving jobs is, of course, a big theme in this budget, and I think the businessmen in this panel here are quite happy with that. Rennie?
Yes, you can see that I'm smiling from year to year. 2 reasons. First is really a pro-business budget, and secondly, I just got an ang pao from the minister. Thank you very much. You see, especially the job credit part came as a surprise to us. We did not expect that. It was very timely because from feedback from our manufacturers, we were hearing that after Chinese New Year, some may not be able to hang on and start retrenchment. So with this, we are sure the majority of them will rethink and probably not retrench, because this is cash immediately in March to the company, And really that is something that is a surprise, a very good surprise for us. And of course, the government taking an increase in the risk of lending to companies is because at the moment of tight liquidity, credit availability is a critical survival factor. So with this increased risk shared by the government is definitely welcome by the business.
Actually, I want to bring Halima in here because you've been representing the electronics sector, the unionists, the workers in the electronics sector. You agree with that view? The workers in the electronics sector. You agree with that view?
Frankly, I find this unexpected. I just want to echo what the Minister said, and he said that we are now in a dire situation. In the electronics sector, I've never seen the speed at which we are seeing retrenchments, the speed at which we're seeing workers being put on shorter work weeks. We now have almost more than 20,000 workers on shorter work week, and we've already been notified by companies, and after the Chinese New Year, after Chap Gourmet, there will be 2,000-3,000 workers who will be retrenched. So these job credits come at a very timely moment. So at least we can now go to the companies and say, can you please review your numbers to see whether this will help you instead of retrenching the workers.
How successful do you think that's going to be in terms of seeing the jobs credit and putting off the retrenchments, as you say?
Well, it is the job credits plus the spur program. We're also working very closely with the companies. We now have a few thousand workers on the spur program, you know. So these two combined together, and I'm very happy also to hear that the spur program will be expanded. This, I think, will be a double booster. So this gives us added ammunition to go to the companies and say, can we just sit down now and review your situation? Can you lessen the number of workers you're going to retrench? So whatever help comes now is really, really helpful, because even if it is in a job credit form or other forms, I think it will be tremendous help to companies. That will be tremendous help to workers.
Yeah, those were the SMEs and the workers there. Dan, your take from a bigger company's point of view.
Yeah, again, very, very positive. I think the confidence-building aspect of this budget is very laudatory. For our business here in Singapore, we have tens of thousands of customers, and half of them are SMEs who need working capital, and liquidity help. And most important, workers need to know that they have jobs. And that will help spur demand as well, right? So when you have a job, you will consume more, and then there's a general benefit to everyone on that. So I think this budget addresses those fundamental issues, but first and foremost is the confidence factor.
David?
Yeah, I think not only does it save jobs, I think it raises the morale of the people, and that's very important. So, but also I'm very concerned about the bottom 20% of the workforce, where getting employed is very challenging in terms like this. It's an employer's market. So for me, is to ensure that they have enough jobs and to be able to place out those jobs. I think that's key.
Yeah, Seng-Woon, you have a different take from a macro perspective.
Okay, I think as usual, this is a fairly good budget in any other budget. I mean, it's a very usual Singapore budget in terms of we deal with the crisis where we think the problem, we get down to fix the thing. So if there are credit issues, we'll go and look into it. If there is a flaw of basically problems at the company level, we'll go and look at it. My problem, however, comes back to this, that this continues to be a fairly calibrated response. You know, not being so rude to the minister, but again, in terms of the response, it looks like, you know, it's a civil servant budget designed by civil servant for civil servant, in that we have forms to fill, perhaps application to be made, you know, and submission to, and things to be processed as well, which again could take time, rather than, you know, taking a sort of much more broader view, rather than deal with the problems on a sort of aggregate basis, because indeed, as you say, we don't know where the problem will end and whether it might become back in the second half of the year or subsequent, I suppose, to that one. So this seems to me that, yes, the size is fairly sizable in terms of the headline numbers of $20.5 billion, which actually is close to what we were looking at. But again, we were, of course, coming from the angle of tax saving, from not the angle of tax saving, from not government spending on a couple of big-ticket items, which may or may not, you know, I suppose, deal with the problem in the event the crisis were to be worse than expected.
All right, let's take a response from the Minister. Would you like to, you know, look at that issue then?
So I think there are two issues. One is how large a budget you should have, how much of a deficit you should run. I suppose Seng-Woon thinks it's about the right size overall. So then the issue is how do you distribute both the spending as well as the tax cuts of one form or another. And that's not an easy matter. You can't please everyone. But you've got to make sure that your key objectives are being attained. And the key objective of this budget is jobs. It is keeping viable companies afloat so that they can